Hello and welcome once again to Loveland's Talking. My name is Andy Hiller. I'm the Public Information Officer here at the City of Loveland to share with you the public information about what's going on with your city government. Hooray, it's springtime. Actually, this hadn't been a bad winter, but I'm certainly glad that it's warmed up. I'm sure you are too. The days are warmer and longer. The birds are chirping and nesting. Golf clubs and tennis rackets are out there instead of snow shovels. Convertibles are driving around with their tops down. These days, when you walk through the neighborhood, there are other signs of spring. Boat trailers are emerging. Garage sale season has begun. Grass is getting greener and taller. Do-it-yourselfers are out there hard at work, and more dogs are taking their owners for walks. So that's all good, right? Well, yes, most of the time. Unfortunately, there are some issues and concerns that some of those activities bring with them, and that's what we're going to discuss today, all under the heading of the Loveland Municipal Code. So to talk about Loveland Municipal Code are our guests and how it pertains to folks, especially in their neighborhoods. So I'm going to begin by asking them to introduce themselves. We'll start at the far end of the table.
Hi, my name is Marcy Wilms, and I'm the Community Relations Manager for Larimer Humane Society. In my current role, I oversee all marketing and PR for our organization, as well as our humane education, volunteer, and community outreach programs.
Well, this should be part of the education portion, huh?
Yes.
Okay. Bill?
Thanks for inviting me. I'm Bill Porter. I'm the Director of Animal Control with Larimer Humane Society. Loveland contracts with Larimer Humane Society for the sheltering and the animal control needs.
Okay. And why don't we clarify something that's often an error. This is not the Larimer County Humane Society. It's the Larimer Humane Society. What's the difference there?
We are an independent nonprofit organization, so we are not funded by any national animal welfare organization. We're not part of the ASPCA or the Humane Society of the United States. And we're actually not part of the cities of Fort Collins or Loveland or Larimer County either. However, we do receive money, contracts through the municipalities to handle our animal protection and control services.
So you're an independent organization that we municipal and county folks basically hire.
Correct.
Okay. Good.
That
Good.
saves the taxpayers money because Loveland doesn't have to have their own animal shelter or animal control officers, and Fort Collins doesn't. So overall, citizens of Larimer County are saving some money.
More of a regional effort than an individual
One-stop shop.
jurisdiction. There you go. Okay. All right. Well, let's move now to a city employee.
Hi, I'm Sharon Frazier. I'm one of the city code enforcement officers. I handle the north area of the city, everything north of Eisenhower. So that's my responsible territory.
That's your beat, so to speak.
So, yes.
Okay. All right. Mary?
I'm Mary Shan, Code Enforcement Officer, and I handle the south side of town, everything south of Eisenhower.
Okay. So your jobs are similar, but
Yeah,
different
just-
parts of town.
Different
Right.
territories.
Okay. So let's talk about municipal code. It's kind of a strange term, I think. We're not talking about some secret code that you need a ring to decipher. Are you? What is municipal code?
Well, municipal code is code that is written over the years to help the city manage different aspects of the citizens' needs, and basically it's kind of a housekeeping mechanism. It's very wide-ranged, and it evolves over time. So.
Okay, it's kind of the law book, city laws, so to speak.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
It covers a whole range of
It
things.
does.
And so here's kind of a look at the table of contents, and I've highlighted some of the things that are kind of big, broad issues that we are not going to talk about today. Water rights and zoning and that sort of thing. Instead, we're going to talk about these highlighted issues or areas that affect people down in their neighborhoods, kind of more of a personal thing. So let's move forward from there then. And our first issue, and this has to do with springtime, has to do with recreational vehicles. Boats, 4x4s, scooters, motorcycles are appearing. In terms of what you folks do, what should people like me who may have one of these, what should I know?
Well, there really are no code provisions for them as far as being on private property. On the public street, the police enforce that. They do have some constraints as far as parking, being hitched to trailers, that sort of thing. The only issue that people might encounter with some of these vehicles is if they're part of an HOA.
Okay. Oh, you got to put a
Homeowners-
quarter in the jar for using an
Homeowners-
acronym.
Okay, homeowners
Okay.
associations, they may have their own restrictions, and they may call out different regulations, or more stringent than we do. So, unless Sharon has something, did you have anything more to add on that?
Let me ask
No?
you in my uninformed way. So we have a picture of a boat trailer parked on somebody's lawn or somebody's property. That's okay. That's not a code violation because it's private property.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. And if I were to take that 4x4 down the street, we don't have anybody from the police department here, but I bet you guys know the answer as to whether that's okay or not.
It would depend on whether or not it was considered street worthy.
Okay. Would it have to have a license plate to be on the street? Okay. So if it's just something that's usually on a trailer and hauled off
Correct.
somewhere for use, but if I decide I want to drive it around the block, I could be in trouble.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, they definitely want to contact the non-emergency number for the Loveland PD if they have questions as far as specifics, whether or not it's illegal.
Okay.
Use.
So this is a quiz. What is that non-emergency number? We all know what the emergency number is, and that's not the one to call for these types of questions.
That would be 667-2151.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
667-2151.
Okay, thanks. Okay. And actually, you'll see that number again on the screen at the very end. Okay, so we've talked a little about recreational vehicles. So let me go to a bigger picture here. How do you guys learn about code issues? I mean, are you out patrolling in a patrol car looking for violations, or primarily how do you learn when there's a concern by somebody in the neighborhood?
Well, we each drive a city-issued vehicle. We respond to anonymous complaints, citizen complaints, if they do want to have us get back with them with what our findings have been. And then while we are out, we are proactive. If we get a complaint about your house and we drive that street and we see other issues on that street, we don't just want to single out one owner. We want to be proactive and make sure that we're addressing any and all code concerns in that area.
Okay. And as we've alluded to, we have people from the Humane Society, we have you guys here. We don't have anybody from the police department. Depending on what the concern is, there's a different person or number to call, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And here's a quick look at some of those numbers. You were exactly right on that number. Good work. Okay. On the police department, the two numbers below that, I presume, are your individual numbers for the North District and the South District. And the building department, we'll talk about that a little bit as well. And our friends with the catchiest phone number right there at the end, I think that's great. So, okay. So even with this information, it can get a bit confusing. There's kind of a general rule. Would one of you like to explain the general rule about who to call?
As far as if it's on public property, then it would be the Loveland PD, Loveland Police Department.
Okay.
We handle the private property issues with regards to the waste and rubbish and vehicles and so forth. And then again, too, if it's going to be for animal control, then it would be the Larimer Humane Society.
Okay. I'm going to break in with an animal question here. So if there's a dog, what appears to be a vicious dog, or somebody scaring me, and I'm in a threatened situation, I would call you guys, or would I call the police, especially if he was somewhere near me, if it was an immediate situation?
If this is an emergency, please call, Loveland Police Department. We're not emergency responders. Our response time is 10 minutes, 20 minutes. A lot of time, it's one officer in town.
Right.
So if something's emergency, PD is much better at getting there on time.
Okay.
They have a great response time.
And I'm guessing if they need help, or they will then call you.
Right.
Correct?
If it's not an emergency, if it has 4 legs, give us a call.
I like that. Okay. So let's move on to the next slide, which has to do with trailers. Trailers of all sorts. We've got an unhitched trailer. We have trailers with recreational vehicles. Looks like they're on private property, and I don't have one with a trailer that is hitched sitting on the street. But tell us what's okay and what isn't.
You want me to take? The trailers on private property are okay. Once again, like Mary alluded to earlier, the homeowners association's regulations may be more stringent than ours, so we always want to check with the HOA's, homeowner association.
Right.
The trailer that's on the street, we don't enforce that, of course, but the Loveland Police Department would. It cannot be unhitched and left on the street. They will mark that and cite it. If it is hitched to a vehicle, that is fine, and I do know that they have a standard rule that the vehicle needs to move every 72 hours so that somebody can't use that curb as a permanent storage place for their truck and their trailer.
I see. Okay. And license plates, are license plates required?
On public property.
On public property. But if that's a new motorcycle and trailer and I haven't gotten it licensed yet, it's still okay to sit unlicensed on my private property.
Yes.
Okay. All righty. Let's see what's next. Let's increase this a little bit from trailers to bigger trailers and things, motorhomes. I know there's a couple of concerns and issues that I've heard of from time to time around the city. One of them, I know there have been cases where people have had people living in their motorhome or trailer in their front or backyard. Is that permitted?
No.
Simple answer?
It becomes an accessory, yeah, it is very simple. It becomes an accessory dwelling. And so code enforcement would handle that if it's on the private property.
Okay.
And they can call us and we'll go take a look at it. A lot of times, people may have their electricity plugged in, and that's not a violation. They can run their cord and to charge the battery or whatever the case might be. We do get a lot of calls where people, they're concerned about that. But if it's out on the street, again, that's public property, and that becomes a Loveland PD issue.
But is it still the same situation? You can't live in it, whether it's on public or private property?
As far as I know.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
What if my relative, say, Uncle Jack, comes and visits me, and he pulls his RV up and parks it in, plugs it in? Can he stay there even for the weekend? Or okay.
No. Not the way the code is currently written.
So I have to let him in my house.
Yes, you do.
Afraid so.
I hope Uncle Jack isn't listening, right? Okay. Let's. How about parking motorhomes? Can you, assuming they're licensed, you can park them on the street, or at least some period of time?
I would imagine, and that would be something that the Loveland Police Department would have to address. But as far as what my thoughts would be on it is that, again, it would run the same 72-hour, and as long as it has current license.
Okay. And how about on private property? We see, and this is what I have heard and seen things in the newspaper about somebody whose neighbor has their, kind of like the bottom two slides here, has the vehicle parked in their driveway or alongside their garage. Is that okay on private property as far as you guys are concerned?
As far as we're concerned.
Yes.
Okay. But again, the homeowners association comes into play there.
Yeah, they may have issues.
Okay.
And they want to make sure that they park it on their property, not on their neighbor's.
That's a good point. Good point. Okay. Moving along, I wish that were my car. Okay, am I allowed to work on my car kind of in front of the house, that sort of thing? If I spend half the day pulling the transmission out, is that permitted?
That is permitted.
Okay. And how about when I'm done? Anything special?
No, if it does not have current plates on it, if it's a vehicle that's not operable that you are working on, then when you are through with it, we require that it be tarped, appropriately tarped.
Okay.
If it does have current plates on it, then it would be okay.
Okay. So, okay.
Unless it was so torn apart, then we would require the tarp on it.
Okay. So even if it had plates and basically it can't run.
If it can't run.
Because I just pulled the engine or transmission.
Yeah, exactly. Then it would need to be tarped, Andy.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then what about a situation like this where somebody has 2 or 3 or a collection of non-running, unlicensed vehicles in their backyard?
In
That's okay, go ahead.
the backyard,
Yeah.
the way that the code reads, they're allowed to have 1 unregistered vehicle per property. That 1 unregistered vehicle needs to be covered with a tarp or put in a garage or removed from public view.
Okay. So more than 1 is a no-no, and if there's 1, it has to be covered.
Mm-hmm.
And you asked it, you reacted when I said the backyard. Is it different in the front yard?
I think what Mary was maybe mentioning is, we have the capability to use some flexibility in the code. We make calls in the field all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So say somebody does have 2, but they have a 6-foot wooden fence that is screening that from view of adjacent properties or road rights-of-way.
Yeah.
It can't be seen. Then how do we enforce that if we can't see it? Do you see what I'm saying?
I say, yeah. So the visibility factor.
Plays into it,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
Okay. And how about the type of car factor? If it's a Porsche, is it okay? But if it's an old Buick, no? Doesn't work like that?
Doesn't work that way.
No?
No.
Okay.
And one of the things, too, that we get a lot of calls on the vehicles, if they have the collector's plates, a lot of times people don't realize that if they're the older vehicles, they have collector's plates. They are legal vehicles, and they can have them if they're currently registered. And they do have a longer registration term than, I believe, as well.
So 1 with collector plates could sit in the front driveway, more or less indefinitely uncovered. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's
As long as it
currently
wasn't all torn apart.
Right.
correct.
Okay. Okay. How about this? This is a Subaru, and my neighbor chooses to park it in front of my house all the time instead of his house. Any problem with that?
And once again, that's a police department call, and I know that they do get complaints. There is nothing in the code that states that car cannot be parked in front of someone else's house as long as it's not blocking a driveway access or sitting across a sidewalk and prohibiting pedestrian traffic, that sort of thing. And I know they deal with that. Loveland PD deals with this a lot.
Okay. And this next example is a little more extreme than I really wanted to mention because I don't think we see this around here. But what if somebody parks basically what I'll call a beater in front of my house and leaves it there for a week or a month or that sort of thing? Do I have any options, even if I know who the owner is? It's Uncle Jack across the street.
That also, too, would be a Loveland PD issue if it's on the public right-of-way, and they would send out a community officer to take a look at it, make sure that it's registered and had current tags. And again, I think they have that 72-hour.
Okay, so theoretically, if it hadn't moved in 72 hours, even if it's a running car,
Could be an abandoned vehicle.
it could be an
Right.
abandoned vehicle. Okay. So what about if I go on vacation for a week and I leave my car parked in front of my house? Can that be an issue?
Well, from a code enforcement standpoint, we would ask that you put the car on private property, and then you wouldn't be asking for a
Right.
citation possibly, that sort
Right.
of thing.
Okay. But assuming, I don't have a driveway in front of or a garage at my house, would I just kind of be at the mercy of my neighbors? Not the type of thing that you patrol for, or is it the type of thing you respond to a complaint maybe from a neighbor that the car's been sitting there too long?
If we do receive a complaint of that sort, we refer it to the police department.
Okay.
So you want to get along with your neighbors.
Yes, always, always. Okay. All right. So let's go from the driveway and the street to front lawns. You got somebody down the street who doesn't take care of his or her lawn, it doesn't get watered, perhaps the house isn't even occupied for a while, and it's just kind of dead and ugly like this. Is that any kind of a code violation, or do the neighbors just have to deal with it?
We have a contract person that we bring in to assist with the weed calls during the spring and summer. If the grasses are over 8 inches or start to border that, then that becomes a code enforcement issue. But lack of watering or maintaining a lawn where it's brown or just has spots in it that doesn't look good is not something that we would enforce.
Okay, all right. Well, how about something like this, where people have decided they would rather do something other than grass in their front lawn, that they have one of those gravel pebble things with some vegetation, etc. This looks like it's well kept, but it's not a grass lawn. And what's the situation there?
We would have no issues with that. That is not a violation of the municipal code. In developing subdivisions, however, the planning department, they have landscaping plans where they call out for a certain number of trees per yard, or trees in the buffer area between a sidewalk and a street. So if it was a newer subdivision and somebody started tearing out the trees and the shrubbery, that sort of thing, that could be an issue with what is on file and recorded as a landscape plan for that particular subdivision.
All right. And then, again, so if it's just an unkept or kind of a dead lawn, that's not a code violation.
Right.
These lawns aren't dead.
No.
These are very healthy. What about these?
All 3 of those are definite violations.
Okay.
They're over the 8-inch.
8-inch. Now, I know that's primarily aimed at weeds and other unpleasant vegetation, but what about if it's just good old bluegrass, or just quality grass that's too tall? Too tall is too tall?
Too tall is too tall.
Okay. And you guys get a lot of complaints about this,
We do.
or calls, right?
We do.
And I understand it's not you guys who actually handle it.
No, our weed enforcement officer, that is all that she does from the time that she comes in on contract until she goes out at the end of the season. And it's not uncommon for us to have anywhere from 700 to 1,000 weed violations in one season here in the city limits.
Wow. Okay. So if there's a lawn like this down the street, what's the procedure? I call one of you two one of those numbers, right? You refer it to that person, and then what does that person do to get that lawn cut?
She would conduct a site inspection first, and then the way the code reads is we notify by what we call a notice and order the property owner of record. And in the case of a foreclosed property or an abandoned property, the last known property owner of record is who we have to attempt to contact. They're given a 7-day time frame in which to bring the property into compliance. If they don't, then we issue and we post a notice and order of abatement. And then after that time frame has expired, we have contracted mowers that go in and actually mow the property or clean it up.
Okay, so the first time they go around, they get a week, and then they get that notice, which is how much longer?
The notice of abatement is usually another week. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mary. And that is sent certified mail, and also the property is physically posted with the notice.
Okay, so even if the owner is out of town, it could be
right.
Foreclosed. A bank in Texas
right.
could own it, right?
Correct.
And basically after 2 weeks, if it's not taken care of, you have folks that go out and mow it.
Correct. And then at that point, the property is liened.
Okay, so that means there's a bill. Their bill is against the owner. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay, moving on. Okay. Stuff, for lack of a better word. Some people have treasures, and other people have stuff, and some people's stuff is a treasure, right? So What about somebody who has, and I know some people, they're very nice people, but what they usually have in their backyard is on their front yard. They have a tetherball thing, and they have patio furniture in the front yard, and they eat, and the kids play catch, and there are always tricycles and bicycles laying on the front yard. Is that a code violation because it's visible?
No, that would not be a code violation. That's recreational and patio furniture would not fall into that category. What we are typically looking for when we get complaints, we'll go out and do a site inspection, would be like refuse, wasted rubbish, debris, stockpiling.
Okay, stuff that's not usable.
Stuff just like that, Andy.
Yeah.
This is where our two worlds
This is where our
combine.
two
Yeah.
worlds collide.
That's not Uncle Jack's house, is it?
A lot of times in places like this, they're dealing with all the rubbish and other things, and then they say, "Hey, Bill, there's a lot of cats here." I notice, and so they give me a call. Cats and dogs, if they are collecting stuff, a lot of times they collect animals too.
And what about maybe if this is an abandoned property, are there animals that are drawn to an area like this? Mice and rats and other things like that?
All that comes together.
Yeah. All righty. Signs. This is the sign season. It's not. It'll be worse in November, right? It'll be
Yes.
big time sign season in November. But these are springtime signs. Some of these are appropriate and okay code-wise, and some are not. You want to give us a quick rundown of which are and which aren't, and why? Go for it, Mary.
Well, on the signs that are out in the public right-of-way, which would be public use. Example being, on the between the sidewalk and the street. Those signs would be considered illegal signs.
Okay.
Then anything that's out on the on any of our electrical boxes, telephone poles, electrical poles,
Stop signs.
stop signs, street signs, taped, any of that sort of thing would be considered illegal signage as well. And
Go ahead.
and usually what we do to handle it is we, if the information's available on the sign, we contact that individual and explain to them why, that the sign can't remain there and where they can place the sign. And we try to work with the public on those. The ones on the stop signs and so forth as well, we will pull those and then try and make contact with them.
Okay. What about if it's on my own front yard? Is that okay?
For a garage sale?
Yeah.
Specifically, if you're having a garage sale and it's in your own front yard, you would be fine.
Okay.
If
Go ahead.
you're advertising a business that is, down in
Sprinkler,
Soterra or sprinklers or roofing companies along those lines, then that becomes a different issue.
Even in my own front yard.
Right.
Okay. And what about if I have a little business in my house? I do barbering out of my house or bookkeeping. Can I put Andy's Bookkeeping Company on a sign in my front yard?
You can't.
How about in my window?
No.
Oh.
And probably what we would do if we saw that too, we would probably look in to make sure that the business is appropriate for the zoning as well, make contact with you and try to find out what.
So it's not only the sign, it's what the sign might represent.
Correct. And
Folks would look into.
the city has a mechanism for those types of businesses and homes. It's called a home occupation permit, and planning does issue those, and they are allowed, but just however, no signage, and they look at the impact to the surrounding area based on what the business
So if I
is.
had people coming, if I had a really good business, and
Yeah.
a lot of people coming and going, that might not be okay.
It might throw you into a whole different
Put a whole
category.
lot of traffic in
Yeah.
the neighborhood. Okay. All right. Also, this time of year, people are doing it themselves. Here are some examples of things that folks might be doing, putting up, refinishing their basement or putting in a deck or maybe even enclosing their porch. Do they need any special permission or anything from the city to do that, or can they just go for it?
Well, they would need to apply for a permit.
What What kind of permit?
Well, it depends. You know, they would, a building permit,
Ah.
you know, they'd want to come down to the building department, and they can also go on our city website. We have forms and information for basement finishes that are available for them. It gives them a step-by-step guide on what's required, the permit, site plans, you know, the information, valuations. But they could certainly call down to the building department for residential, and commercial is handled a different way. And, you know, anybody down there would be able to help them and assist them through the process.
And Andy, one of the things that we tell the general public is it's kind of a rule of thumb. Any type of cosmetic work, you're changing your countertops, or you're changing your floor tiles, or changing out your cupboards, that sort of thing, painting. Those are considered cosmetic upgrades, and none of that requires a building permit. So what we try to kind of tell the public is if you're doing anything that is structural, electrical, mechanical, or plumbing, any of those require a building permit.
Well, you know, I think I'm pretty good at this kind of work. I don't know why I would need a building permit and inspectors. You know, I mean, heck, it's not that difficult to do this kind of work. Anybody can do it, right? and it always works well, right?
Yeah, there's an example of
Yeah.
something that didn't work well.
Yeah, okay. And the one on the left is an actual local. I mean, the deck is a local photo. I think the other one is also.
They both are.
Yeah. So, and on the second one, the electrical one, what people need to realize, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you do go and refinish your basement by yourself without a permit, and then kind of it's learned about that you have, and you've put in electrical work, et cetera, that may not be safe, the city may come in and cut holes in your wall that you just put in order to be able to inspect the electrical system.
What happens is if we have illegal basement finishes, which is a lot of times what happens is people will go to sell their property, and then it comes about that the basement work was not done with a permit. So then you have permit after the facts. And at that point, they would have to apply for a permit, submit as if they were applying for that permit at this time, and they would have to bring the basement up to the code.
Right.
And have the inspections done, and if there's any work that needs to be done to bring it up to the existing code, then they would have to take care of that. But yes, there's a possibility that at that point, with electrical, because it's going to be behind walls, the inspectors would not be able to get to that.
And plumbing. And just to kind of
Yeah,
make a quick correction here,
Yeah.
to make our inspectors happy, we don't cut the walls open.
Okay.
The city does not, but the inspector may require the homeowner to bring the drywall off.
One way or the other,
Yeah,
there's going to be a hole
right.
in the wall,
Correct.
regardless of
Yes.
who's yielding the
Correct,
thaw.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So those are examples of things that do require a permit. Here are some things that painting you mentioned is cosmetic. What about things like shingles and gutters?
None of that work right there would require a permit other than a re-roof that is on a commercial building.
On a commercial building. Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to do all this work, so I got a lot of tools, and I need a place to put them. So I'm going to have one of these in the backyard. Is this okay, or do I need a permit for a shed?
Anything under 200 square feet does not require a permit, although what we would, and I think Sharon will agree, we would like to have them contact the planning department because there are regulations for setbacks and height restrictions
That means
as well.
how close it can be to the
To
neighbor.
the fence or to the neighbor's property line. The other thing, Andy, I wanted to mention is that building code just recently changed. Historically, for residential properties, it's always been in excess of 120 square feet would require a permit. Now it's 200.
I see. So it's gotten more lax rather than
Correct,
tighter.
correct.
Okay. All right.
Oh, and one more thing.
Yes. Uh-huh.
If you wanted to run electricity to it,
Ah.
it didn't need a permit
Yeah.
because it met the size requirements, but you wanted to run electricity to it so that you could, light it up at night or have a workshop in there, that the electrical permit would be a requirement.
I'm guessing that you mean permanent electrical
Correct.
service as opposed to running an extension cord out from the house from time to time.
Right.
Okay. And here are some other examples of things that people put in their backyard. Permit or no permit?
No permit.
No permit.
Okay. And here's one I wanted to surprise you with, but what about this guy? Huh? Permit or no permit?
No permit.
Or no way?
We do have a few tree houses
Yeah,
in the city, and they are not permitted. They are not inspected. They are considered to be in the same category as the playground equipment, actually.
Okay. Which brings to mind, what if there's a cat in the tree or in the tree house? Used to be, I mean, the stereotype is the fire department comes with their hook and ladder truck. What is the situation with something like that if a cat's been, or an animal of some sort's been up in the tree for a while?
If a cat is in a tree, well, let me see. There are organizations to help, but cats always come down. I have never
Hungry.
seen. They come down hungry. I've never seen a dead cat in a tree.
Okay.
But there are organizations to help out.
Okay. Now, occasionally we see a picture of a bear or a bobcat in the tree, maybe on far west part of Loveland. Who did you call in?
We do get those calls. Anything larger than a coyote, a bear, a cougar, that's Division of Wildlife.
Okay. So, but if they called you, you would forward the call, or
That's right. That's right.
so. Okay, it's 1-800-COYOTE. I like the dogs. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So, speaking of animals, it's time for what I think is the best part of the show, because I'm an animal guy, and especially a dog guy. Sorry, ladies. After we got past the 50s, pardon me?
I just learned a lot from.
I did too.
Good. Yeah. I think this this is always an eye opener to people when we do something like this. But for me, I live on a collector street, and everybody walks their dog, and I stop and I joke that, hey, I'm the official dog inspector on this street, and I say hello. But are there any breed? And I see all sorts of dogs. Are there any breeds or kinds that are not allowed? And of course, what always comes to mind are pit bulls. Are pit bulls okay? Is it okay to own a pit bull in Loveland?
Yes, it is. It's okay to own a pit bull terrier in Loveland. There are no breed restrictions for dogs in Larimer County. We just highly encourage any dog owner who owns any type of dog, whether if it's a bully breed or if it's a small or a large dog, that training is always a necessity as a dog owner.
Okay. Do pit bulls earn their reputation, or are there other dogs in your experience that are just as likely to snap at you?
Pit bulls are an extraordinarily kind breed. They have, they're highly misrepresented in the media. You know, as in the case with any animal, you know, an animal is only as good as its owner. So you need to make sure that, you know, as a pet owner, you have a responsibility to train your pet and to ensure that, you know, you do positive reinforcement to ensure that your animal behaves properly. Pit bull terriers, by and large, they're just stockier and they have a lot more muscle. So they have that potential to cause harm if they're not properly trained, as does any animal, actually. So it's just really, really important that as pet owners that we are responsible.
Okay. Okay. Well, you talked about for all dogs. Let's talk about numbers of dogs, and I guess cats or critters. Are there any restrictions here in Loveland as to how many dogs or cats you can own?
That's an excellent question. We get that call a lot. Everyone's always looking for that magic number on the number of animals that you can own. In short, the answer is anyone who owns over 15 animals does need a special permit. But the longer answer is, you know, we want to just make sure that every animal is treated properly. So if you're not able to adequately take care for one animal, then you have too many pets. And there are ordinances within, there are Loveland ordinances that say you can only care for a certain number of animals that you can adequately care for. And if you can't adequately care for one, then you have too many.
Gotcha. I got it.
And then we have many residents within the city of Loveland, and and throughout Larimer County that have 14, and they can adequately care for 14 animals. So it really depends on if you can care for the number of animals in your home.
I'd like to add a little bit more. It's not just how you can care for those animals. It's like, are you bugging your neighbors? Are you picking up the dog poop? Are they being quiet? Also, it's just the neighbors' consideration as well for
And
too many.
When we began, you explained that people can call the code enforcement, your number, either anonymously or not if they have a concern or an issue. Same with you guys? If I'm concerned about my neighbor, can I just call you and so that he or she doesn't know which side called?
Yes, yes. Anytime there's a concern about a welfare of an animal, we just want to know about that. So if they want to be anonymous, that's fine. If they want to leave their number so we can get additional information. A lot of times it's hard to find the exact house, exact animal they're talking about. A brown horse in a field, there could be 10 of them out there.
I gotcha.
We were talking about number of animals, so I'd like to add a couple other things.
Please.
It's like chickens. Chickens are quite popular. I mean, are you having too many? There we go. Oh, there. Too many chickens.
There you go.
I'm glad we brought up chickens because it is very popular. I live in Loveland. I have chickens.
How many chickens do you have?
I have 5
Okay,
chickens.
and is there a limit?
It's limiting me. I can't keep up with the eggs. So I'm giving them to my neighbors, which makes them happy, and
Okay.
if they cluck, they're fine.
Then they don't complain about your
Then
chickens.
you got it. Let's talk
How
to
about a rooster?
a rooster. Well, they aren't prohibited. Let's just say that. But there is a noise ordinance, and I don't know about you, but I have never seen a quiet rooster. So roosters, a lot of times you buy these cute little chicks at Jack's, and they do become roosters. And Humane Society does accept them, roosters, because you can have them out in the county, and they do create quite a racket for the citizens of Loveland.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so chickens, yes. Roosters, not a good idea.
not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
Okay, well, how about other critters in the backyard? Here we have, what do we have here? Looks like we have somebody riding bareback on a pig there. right?
Looks like a potbelly pig.
And a couple of goats and a llama or alpaca. I can't tell the difference.
Those are alpacas, and all of those are no. They're considered farm animals. Even though they're cute and they're compact and they don't create much noise, they're still the pygmy goat. There's that goat. And the city considers them a farm animal, and farm animals are considered to be a nuisance, except for horses. If you have a half-acre land, you are allowed to have a horse.
Really? Okay, what about homeowners' issues there? Homeowners association.
Normally, if you have enough acreage for a horse, you have a property that's not within a homeowners association, normally. I did want to interject real quick with what Bill was saying about these types of animals are considered farm animals and are a no-no in Loveland. However, over time, when the city annexes county properties, at times they will annex the property in the condition that it was in upon annexation, and we do have a couple of properties in Loveland that do have what's considered farm animals because the property was annexed with those animals in place at the time. So I don't want people to hear no and then think about their neighbor who maybe has, alpacas or pot-bellied pigs, and then think that, oh wait, I could make them get rid of that now. There's sometimes some gray areas.
What about after the lifespan of that animal? Can they get if the pig dies or
Right.
they sell it or something, can they get a replacement pig?
For instance, say it's a property that had 4 pygmy goats and one of the goats dies, they can replace that goat. They just can't increase the numbers.
Okay.
When they move out.
When they move out, the use goes away.
Ah,
Yes.
okay.
yes.
If the use terminates for 1 year, it will go away as well.
Right.
I see. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay. Thank you.
Again, this is where our worlds
Collide.
Guys. Hey guys, what's going on over here? We get a lot of those phone calls.
Been
back
there,
and
done
forth.
that, haven't
Yep.
we, Mary?
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get back to pooches, okay? So if here in Loveland, if I have a dog that's well-trained like this and just walks alongside and heels and stays by my side, does the dog need to be on a leash?
The dog needs to be on a leash for a few reasons. One, most importantly, is the safety of the dog. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, they're animals. They can just bolt quickly. There's a lot of people, a lot of traffic, a lot of other dogs. Do your part to protect your animal. So that's quite helpful. Also, it protects other people as well. So that's why that law is in place.
Okay, so anywhere and everywhere?
In the city limits, there are a few. Loveland has a couple great dog parks.
Yeah.
And encourage people to go there. And if you go outside city limits, as long as you have verbal control over your dog, have fun, play fetch.
I'm just curious, as you guys represent or cover the whole county, does the leash law change depending on where you are, Fort Collins, LaPorte, out in the unincorporated area, or out in the trail heading up to Horsetooth Mountain?
Anything within city limits, because the traffic and the congestion, high number of people, they need to be on a leash in Loveland and Fort Collins. Okay. When you go out to the less in the rural area, you don't need a leash.
So, go ahead.
Real quick, I had an interesting call last week that was right on the same topic. It was one of the walking trails. And the gentleman had called to find out whether that walking trail was located within the city limits, because there were people that did not have their animals on a leash. And so we pulled it up on the map, and this part of the trail was in the city, and then that part over here went out into the unincorporated area of the county, and then it came back into the city. And so basically it was determined that you could take the dog off the leash from here to here, and then you have to put him back on the leash. It was funny.
That's true. Technically, that's
Okay. So basically, if you're in town, whether it's here or Fort Collins or everywhere, and the dog is going down the street, the dog should have a leash.
yes.
Okay, so in that case, this would be okay, correct? That's perfectly right, right? Okay. I just want to make sure I understand this properly. What about cats?
Cats as well.
Yeah?
Cats as well. Encourage people to keep cats indoors. We are in Colorado. There's a lot of foxes, a lot of coyotes in this area, cars, other bad dogs. Protect your critter.
Okay.
Keep them safe. Keep them indoors. And if you do want to take your cat outside, get it some fresh air, encourage you to put the cat on the leash or have some kind of a structure where it's contained inside.
Okay. Okay. Here are some dogs that are kind of sleeping in the front yard. I use this as a personal example. If I'm out working on the car or the front of the house, I'll tie Marcel up with a long rope to the tree so he can watch the rest of the world go by and supervise my tune-up on the car. That okay?
That's perfectly acceptable. As long as you're out there, you know, you're with your dog. Don't leave them up there for a day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 years. That's when you get into a problem. And it needs to have some shelter from the hot sun or the snow. Water is a good idea. But again, be mindful. Your dog is safe. You know, it's on your property. Don't let it go into the sidewalk because people are trying to walk by. Remember that your dog isn't going anywhere, but it doesn't prevent other animals or other people coming on and harming your dog.
What about, I was thinking about this, putting this together. So the dogs pretty much need to be fenced or restrained, tethered, or on a leash pretty much most of the time, especially when. What about like an electric fence? If if either of these dogs were in the front yard and they weren't tethered and there was just that electric fence, there's nothing physically. How does that work? If the dog crosses the street to go see another dog, is that a violation? Even though I have an electric fence?
Have an electric fence up. It's not it needs to be a physical, which means like a fence or a leash. The city doesn't recognize invisible fences. Do they work? Most of the time, but sometimes a dog, if it sees a squirrel across the street, it'll just grit its teeth and go. And then and this is what I've had a problem with, is trying to get that dog home. So this is the house, you have the electric fence, the dog won't go back to its house and, can't reach the owner, and so there's a dog that's circling the neighborhood. He wants to go home, but he's scared of that line because he'll get shocked again.
And also, Andy, not in the ordinance that they administer and enforce, but in a separate part of the ordinance, electric fences are not allowed in the city limits.
Really?
Really.
Well, that must be different elsewhere, because I have a friend who lives in Fort Collins, and they live in a nice neighborhood, and it must be a homeowner's requirement that there are no fences. So the next door neighbor has a couple of big friendly dogs, and they have the electric collar, and I walk across, because I'm not wearing the collar, so I walk across to say hello to the dogs and that sort of thing. But the whole neighborhood is like that, and they're not the only folks with an electric fence and dogs.
I think electric fence, yes.
It's different.
Electric fence,
That's what
but the invisible fence where you bury the
That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I know you were talking about invisible fence, the one that you bury the
Right.
transmitter.
Okay. All right. Moving right along. This is an in-depth show we have here. This is a situation that I'm sure, it's happened to me before, to other people. There's a dog in the neighborhood who just doesn't like people, and every time you walk by, it jumps up on the fence or sticks its head through and growls, and it's scary. If I live on that block and I have kids and that sort of thing, do I have any options? The dog's contained; it hadn't left its yard yet.
Yeah. It hasn't done any harm yet, so I think it's important to be mindful of that situation. If it was me walking my child, I would skirt around it. If the dog does get out, please call us immediately, and we will respond. But until it does do something, there's no action can be taken by animal control. Think of it like that shady guy that's hanging out in front of 7-Eleven. You know he's going to rob that store. He's looking shifty, just showing all the signs. But until he actually walks in the store, puts up the gun and says, "Give me your money," police can't do anything.
You guys can't knock on the door and just say, "Hey, the neighbors are concerned. This is a courtesy call," type of thing. And I'm sure you have plenty of time to do that.
This is a situation where I think neighbors, being friends with your neighbors, is a good idea. Let them know what the dog's behavior is doing, say while they're at work or something like that. Animal control, I'm sorry, we just don't have the resources available to do that.
Okay, we're going to talk about that a little bit more here before we call it a day. Okay, so this next slide, this dog, I joke, that thinks it's a coyote because it's not aggressive or ugly like this one. It's just noisy. It likes to howl, or it goes out in the backyard and just barks forever every time a squirrel goes by. And I live next door. Is there anything that I can do or should do?
Absolutely. It is becoming springtime, so windows are going up, dogs are outside barking. It's a common problem, and yes, we can do something about it. Ideally, it's a neighbor would talk to each other and just say, "Hey, did you know while you're at work your dog is barking all day?" I think that's a good first step. Open up those lines of communication between you and your neighbor. If that doesn't work, we have resources available. On the internet, we have information suggestions that we could do, letters that could be posted on the neighbors if you want to have a hard time reaching them or don't feel comfortable and want to do it anonymously. The first official step, when we can do something, knock on the door, have an officer knock on the door and say, "Your dog's barking, you have one warning, and you have 7 days to take care of it. If you don't take care of it, and we receive another complaint, you'll be issued a citation.
Okay. And you said there was some information that could be helpful on your internet site. Is that what for your site?
Yes, on www.larimerhumane.org, we have a noisy pet letter that you can actually download and give to your neighbor, which sort of outlines the guidelines that Bill discussed.
Repeat the web address.
www.larimerhumane.org.
I was just thinking it's not dogs.org. And that one's probably already taken. Yeah, okay. All right, let's see what else we have to talk about here about animals. Everybody gets a kick out of this. You know what we're going to discuss here. Dog waste. Of course, it's always, I think, a courtesy. You see people walking around with a plastic bag, picking it up. Is it a requirement? If it doesn't get picked up, am I in trouble? Does the dog get a ticket, or do I get a ticket?
The person who's holding on to leash, the responsible party, whether it is the owner or the good neighbor who just taken their neighbor's dog for a walk, they're the ones that would get the ticket. And it's a $50 ticket.
Really?
And also, if it's on like public area as well, but also think about picking up after your dog in the backyard. Don't let it build up too bad, because having it build up too much, too long, smell, flies, and it's becoming a nuisance to the neighbors. That's when we can get involved too. And again, a citation for that.
Well, you said it's a $50 fine on a public area, so I assume that would mean like a park, or even just in the middle of the street, walking down along the curb.
Always a good idea to have a bag with you, but the city does a great job of parks and trails. There's bags everywhere, so there's really no excuse not to pick up that.
What about private? Somebody's walking on the sidewalk, and the dog goes to somebody's front yard instead of off the curb to take care of his business. Is that still? Could I still be fined for letting that occur?
As long as the owner or the handler picks up after their dog, it's fine.
Okay, but if the owner or handler did not,
If they just walked away from it, yes.
so regardless if it's public or private property. Okay, all right. Horses.
Horses. Yes, occasionally there are horses that go along our trails, and it is considered a violation not to pick up after your horse.
Really? Okay, interesting. And whoops, I went to that one too soon. Okay, this is my favorite one, and then we're going to talk about a little budgetary issue, and then call it a day. This has been a lengthy show. Thank you, folks, for hanging in here with us. But this latter part, I think, is real special because we haven't really done anything like this with the Humane Society in the past. So here's one I like to have some fun with. I am correct, am I not, that it is illegal or a code violation or whatever you want to call it for my dog to be naked in public?
Naked. Yes, all cats and dogs are required to be licensed in the city of Loveland and the city of Fort Collins as well. But we'll focus on Loveland. Your pets actually need to have the collar with their pet license as well as their rabies tag around their neck at all times. It is a requirement. We see people, residents every day that have their pets licensed but keep the license in the drawer, in the kitchen drawer at home. That doesn't do your pet any good. It is a requirement to license your pet in the city of Loveland, and it doesn't cost that much either. It only costs $12 if your pet is altered, spayed or neutered, and $35 if your animal is intact per year. The fee to get your animal out of Larimer Humane Society is much, much more than that. So it's just really important that your animal wear that tag all the time.
Is the fee different? If my licensed dog strays, I used to have a lab I called Houdini because he would just take off, all the time. Versus, and you guys pick him up and let me know, and I come get him at the shelter. Mm-hmm. Is it a different cost to me to get Tanner back if he's licensed as opposed to unlicensed?
If he's licensed but he's not wearing his tags, we'll treat it as though he's not licensed.
Okay.
So it's really just important that they're wearing their license tag.
But even with or without a so if he's wearing a tag and it has a license, it costs X. But if he's unlicensed, or
That is
not wearing it, it's a higher cost.
Yes, that's correct. So it's $40 a day if your pet is wearing its tags, plus a $10 per day boarding fee. And then it's $60 if your pet's not wearing its tags. We get the question a lot, well, my animal is microchipped, does it need to wear a license? So that's the part that we want to clarify, and why is a license and a microchip both important? Let's take, for example, and Bill's going to touch upon this a bit more, but there are budgetary cuts to the animal control contract. And if your pet is wearing its license, it means numerous things. One, we know that your pet is up to date on its vaccinations, because we have to check before we renew your pet's license. So that's a comfort level that we give to residents of our community if they're wearing their license tag. In addition to the fact that, if I have my yellow lab, Gabby, and she's walking down the street, and she's wearing her license tag, and somehow she got out of our yard, and she wanders over to Bill's house, what Bill can do with a license tag is call Larimer Humane Society, read off that A number, and I'll be like, oh, that's Marcy's dog? And I'm just going to go ahead and take it home. Whereas, unless you're an animal protection and control officer, I'm sure you don't have a microchip scanner laying around your house.
Yeah.
So it's just really important, and it really is truly, when we say a license is your pet's ticket home, we're not joking. I mean, it really is a very quick way to get your pet home a lot faster.
If somebody were to call you because they found a stray dog and had the license number, and you would give them the owner's name and address, phone number, perhaps?
So they can go ahead and
Right, and there wouldn't be any charge or cost for that. Okay.
No, so you can go ahead and, if my dog's wandered over to your house, and you can keep them for the afternoon and make sure when I come home from work to return that pet. And our officers will do the same thing. Our animal protection and control officers will make every effort to return a licensed pet to their home before they ever bring it into the shelter. So it's really important. So.
And I'm going to guess that a good portion or most of the revenue received from the licensing helps pay the bills for the shelter.
It does. It's part of our shelter service revenue. So our funding comes from three primary sources: our contracts with the municipalities, our service revenue, which is primarily adoption fees and licensing fees, and then we have a fundraising portion of our organization as well. So that's fees that people pay to attend our events, from Fire Hydrant 5, which is our upcoming walk run to be held on June 9th, and then we have our Top Cat and Tails Gala, which is held every year in the fall.
Okay, so you've got one coming up shortly.
We do, yeah.
A quick rundown.
Very quick rundown. We have our Fire Hydrant 5 walk run, which is coming up Saturday, June 9th. It's going to be actually held in Fort Collins at Eudora Park, and it's a super fun event. Last year we had over 800 participants come with about 600 canines, and we had over 60 booth vendors. Had a fabulous time, and again, it's a nice family walk, run around the neighborhood, and then you come back and enjoy the booth vendors. And Larimer Humane Society benefits tremendously from this walk run, particularly in regards to the pledges that people raise. So above and beyond your entry fee, we encourage members of the community to raise funds. We have a site that people can put together their own personal webpage, very similar to Multiple Sclerosis or some of those other organizations where you try to collect donations before the event. But that really goes to help the animals in our community. And Larimer Humane Society serves over 12,000 animals a year.
Wow. For this event, can you just show up, or do you have to pre-register? Or anything?
You do have to pre-register. Well, there's a discount for pre-registering up to a certain date. We call that, our early bird fee. But you can definitely register day of. So all of that information will be available on our website soon. Registration opens April 18th.
Okay, and the date of the event again?
Is Saturday, June 9th.
And the website again.
I would love to share that. It's www.larimerhumane.org. Okay. and all the information about that can be found under our events tab. So.
Well, I'm going to go to one more animal slide here because I'm stretching this joke here about the animals being naked. So here's a slide of some obviously legal dogs because they're not naked, right? Right? Okay. So let's talk a bit about the reality that you guys face or that we've all faced in the last few years. Budgets have been cut everywhere, including I know that the city of Loveland, their contract with you guys has been reduced to some degree, and as a result, as a community member here in Loveland, one's expectations need to be matched kind of to the budget situation. So what, if I call you for one reason or another about an animal concern, what can I expect and what can I not expect these days?
I want to just first, before Bill delves into some specifics, I want to clear up some common misconceptions that there are about Larimer Humane Society. When we bring an animal, a stray animal, into our shelter, that animal is held for a period of 5 days, not including the day they came in. Above and beyond that, after that animal comes in, we will evaluate that animal for potential placement in our adoptions program. Larimer Humane Society is what we consider to be an open-door shelter, which means we accept every animal in need. We don't turn animals away based on age, breed, size, you name it. That animal comes to our door, we'll take it in. But because of that, on occasion we do receive animals that may be too ill or may be suffering from an illness or a trauma that they're not, or they may be a threat to public safety. So in that event, we will consider humane euthanasia. But the animals that are placed up for adoption at the shelter, once they're placed up for adoption, there's no time limit for the animals at our shelter. So as long as their health and behavior remain positive, they're with us for as long as it takes for them to get adopted.
Is there an elder statesman at your shelter, an animal in particular that's been there for a long period of time?
In fact, today I'm going to 9 News to bring Dolce on. Dolce is a 3-year-old Cocker Spaniel who's been with us for 4 weeks. So we're hoping that she will find a home very, very soon.
4 weeks doesn't strike me as a real long period of time.
It can be when you're confined to a kennel
Right,
for
but
some time. Yeah.
I guess you're talking about misconception. My misconception would be that there are dogs that have been there for a much longer time that for some reason or other people chose not to adopt.
Larimer Humane Society, Larimer County in particular, we're a very animal-loving community, so we're very fortunate. Our animals are adopted fairly quickly, and for those that we know that we can't find placement for, we work extensively with our transfer partners. So we'll call up another breed rescue group or humane society within the area, and we'll say, hey, we have a Dalmatian that really hasn't been successful in finding a home. Would you be willing to take this Dalmatian? And they will, and they're like, well, absolutely, but we have 3 hamsters that we haven't been able to place. So we sort of do a broker in trade, if you will, so it's kind of fun.
So, getting back, what types of things do you guys do and not do and react to quickly, and what takes a little longer? I ought to be a little more patient, perhaps.
I think patience is the important one here. There has been a reduction in the amount of revenue we receive from the Loveland contract. I'd like to say that Loveland is not only paying for animal control, but it's also paying for the sheltering of those animals. Mm-hmm. So it's more than just an officer going on the street and giving someone a ticket for the dog running around. Uh-huh. So I think when an officer picks up a dog, it just starts it just starts the care and feeding and the vet and all the sheltering. That's when the expenses really start. So we are still, the shelter is still going to be open, available to the public for Loveland 7 days a week. Wildlife is still accepted 7 days a week. If you have a complaint, you still get somebody to pick up the phone and hear your complaint about a dog barking or their dog being attacked by another dog or what.
You have an outsourced
7 days a week.
country, huh?
No, we're still there. We're still in business. An officer, a field officer, is only going to be able to respond to calls 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. And that is Sunday through Thursday. And we'll do our best to get to all the calls. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that. I mean, in the wintertime, things are slower. You can pretty much get them done. But as the things are picking up, we're finding that the officer can't get enough. So what we're doing is responding to the most important calls first. You know, that dog I just mentioned that got attacked by somebody else's dog, that's a higher priority than a dog barking in your neighbor's yard. So we're finding that we're not able to respond in a timely manner or at all to, say, that dog barking. If it is an emergency, like somebody is being attacked by a dog or police need assist, we are available, officer is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to help with those emergency situations.
What about an injured animal?
Yes.
Dog that gets hit by a car or something?
Dog,
like that?
cat is available 24/7. So we have officers available 24/7 to help with that. Other agencies have really come up and helped in these difficult times, code enforcement being one of them, police department, Division of Wildlife have all stepped up to help out. There's frustrations. I ran some numbers yesterday, and so far we have 1,100 calls for service from Loveland residents.
You say so far.
So far from January to yesterday.
Okay, so year to date. So
Year to date.
And this is end of March, depending on what that we're taping.
Yep,
this.
March 21st, January 1st to March 21st. 1,100 calls. People asking for help. Everything from a dog barking in my backyard to a vicious dog attack. So we've responded to most of them, not all of them. Because of the service reductions, 216 calls we just haven't been able to respond to. So those are 216 residents that...
But of the calls, those are the least threatening. I mean, you prioritize.
Oh,
them.
yes. Oh, yes.
Some of them are annoyances with animals as opposed to situations with life and property,
Yeah.
health and safety.
Most of those are wildlife, injured wildlife. We just don't have the resources to be able to respond to the, say, the sick raccoon, a hit by injured squirrel or fox. There's a lot of sickness going around. So we just simply haven't been able to do that, referring those calls to Division of Wildlife.
Sure. Okay. Well, that makes sense. You have to do what you can do and prioritize, and people shouldn't expect things that are really not capable of being taken care of right away.
Instead of a 2-hour response time, which typically we have for non-emergency type of calls, it's turning into, a day. So sometimes if you say, for example, Marcy finds a dog and we don't give service on that day, say a Friday or a Saturday, she can either bring that dog into the shelter or she can hold on to it, and then an officer can pick up on Sunday.
How about a dog that's running loose that won't come to you so that you can, bring it home yourself? Is that the type of thing that we could call?
Absolutely. On please call. It's hard to keep track of. Okay, what day does animal control work? Just call. Just call. If we have an officer available, we will respond.
If it's a service day.
If it's a service day. If it's not a service day, we're not able to do that. So those non-service days are Friday and Saturday.
All right.
It's important to note that for the calls that we don't respond to anymore, that we previously did before the reduction in the contract, the nuisance wildlife, the raccoons and the other critters that are rummaging through your trash or those pesky critters in your garden. Our website, again, www.larimerhumane.org, is a fabulous resource. If you go under our Wild Kind tab, there we offer suggestions for how to deal with the pesky raccoon and squirrels and we'll give you humane solutions on how to deal with the critters.
And I'm assuming, worst case, if you don't know what's appropriate to call for or not, just call.
Absolutely.
And worst case, you'll say, I'm sorry, that's not something that we can assist you with or can't assist you with today, or it may take a while, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Please use judgment when, if it's like, oh, animal control is not going to go out for that raccoon or skunk or something. Please use judgment when doing it yourself type of thing, because there are diseases. We're seeing a lot of foxes with mange that, well, your pets can catch, you can catch, so use caution when doing that. A lot of distemper raccoons. We can't get distemper, but possibly your dog can. Also, rabies looks a lot like distemper. So we want, and rabies is here in Larimer County, so we want to be careful. Bats, skunks, all carry rabies. If they're out during the day, something's wrong, they're sick. Could possibly be rabies, most likely no, but, we want to be safe. So use judgment when approaching those kind of animals.
Well, folks, we've covered a lot of ground here. Anything else anybody wants to mention before we call it a day?
I don't know about you, Mary, but I think we covered it pretty comprehensively. Those were good questions that you asked.
Okay. All right. Well, then I will wish everybody well, and I will especially wish Marcy well. By the time you folks probably see this show, Marcy will have, is that correct, next month?
Yes.
Next month, Marcy is going south. No, it's not Florida or Mexico for a vacation. She's going, what, Lakewood?
Lakewood, yes.
She and her husband are moving south of Larimer County. So we wish you well.
Well, thank you very much, Andy. I appreciate it. We've thoroughly enjoyed living in Loveland for the past 3 years.
Well, good. And the two of you, both Marcy and Bill, thank you so much for spending time with us. We haven't had the opportunity before. I guess we've had the opportunity. We just haven't followed up on it to have you guys on the show and talk in a bit of depth about the Humane Society, which is a great service to our community. So
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And especially, of course, every month, thank you, folks, for tuning in and watching Loveland's Talking. We look forward to seeing you again next month. Take care now. Bye-bye.